What if I told you about $100 trillion conspiracy, but the kind that is hiding in plain sight, hiding behind technical documents that almost nobody reads? Talking about like thousands of pages of statistical revisions, metadata, international frameworks, all of this stuff that looks completely administrative, benign even, right? But assembled together, it's like a fortress made of Lego, forming something that resembles a kind of techno-colonial resource grab. And so let's go back to this 100 trillion. Now just let that sink in for a moment. $100 trillion is roughly the combined global government public debt. But that's the scale of capital that we're talking about when we talk about redirecting capital flows through an international financial architecture. So here's the thing. There's no single treaty yet, no binding legal instrument yet, nothing that quite formally fuses the three frameworks I'm about to describe, not yet anyway. But what does exist, however, are modular governance structures that can be assembled through standards, statistical guidelines, compliance and financing conditions, and enforced through trade and investment agreements. So let me walk you through these three frameworks. The Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, they were adopted by the UN in 2015. They organized the kind of global development policy around 17 goals and 167 targets. So poverty, climate, biodiversity, infrastructure, social welfare, etc. So countries report progress through these standardized indicators that translate the social and ecological conditions into comparable statistical units. Now, what that also does is it gives international institutions, lenders, and investors a common scorecard to evaluate national performance and to attach financing conditionalities to this. Now, that's essentially 167 backdoor investment schemes that would be privatizing or locking in systems of compliance. So that was one. SEA. The second is the system of national accounts, the UN SNA, or the organization that helps to shape how we measure GDP, our national accounts. So it gets revised, and it happens every few years. But when it gets revised, it expands what counts as economic value, how we measure. And those revisions shape how states measure growth and debt capacity, and even the economic metrics of military systems. So obviously, who does that benefit, right? Now, historically, these national accounting standards benefit advanced economies while ignoring the value measurements that could actually serve Global South countries. And so if there was an SNA revision created by the Global South, it would essentially equalize the global economy by prioritizing and valuing their own economic outputs. The system of environmental economic accounting, the third batch, the SEEA or the SEEA, extends national accounting to ecosystems, forests, fisheries, land, water, biodiversity, all of that translated into standardized reporting units and integrated into national balance sheets. So think about what that means for huge swaths of maritime protected areas, the data of forestry, of water systems, and think about like what that means in terms of like consent and whose consent gets bypassed in the process of valuing that data. Indigenous peoples, migrant or peasant communities, people who are affected by conflict, climate displacement, economic exclusion. Now, each of these frameworks looks technical on its own, but together they produce something quite different. The SDGs set the policy targets, the SNA measures the economic performance against them, and the SEEA translates ecosystems into statistical units that plug them all, together. And so this data and statistical infrastructure will soon be embedded in financing frameworks, regulatory benchmarks, and again, trade agreements. And we can already see how in carbon markets that compliance shifts from providing communities with access to engage in their own local intermediary markets to having to conform to new involuntary reporting schemes that function as a new form of enforceable economic hegemony. And I want to be concrete about what this looks like, because the governance stack produces real intermediaries, real gates, as communities will have to pass through to access resources or financing. And we're not only talking about, for example, like carbon credits or carbon swaps or here, or carbon markets. We're looking at verification bodies that certify them. But also there's, biodiversity offset registries that let corporations damage one ecosystem by paying into a fund somewhere else. There's natural capital valuation agencies, reinsurance schemes, ESG rating systems that score nations against indicators designed by and for the investment communities, green bond certification bodies. There's payments for ecosystem services schemes like Red Plus that transfers governance authority upwards while appearing to compensate communities. And binding all of it is IMF lending conditions, World Bank financing requirements, and trade agreements and compliance mechanisms that make the rest less than negotiable. Now, every one of those intermediaries could be community governed. And so the question of who gets to value a forest, certify a fishery, or define sustainable use is a political question about whose knowledge counts, whose relationship to land has standing, who determines what development means. And right now, that question is being answered by the same institutions and industries that brought us to the edge of the environmental and social crisis that we're currently living through. And this is why access to markets matters. And Marxists, environmentalists, labor activists, migrant activists, indigenous rights activists, the connective thread across all these movements is the same. We need to take control of our local markets, translocal markets, solidarity economies, our main streets, our value systems, so that it reflects actual community relationships rather than investment portfolios. A globally harmonized statistical architecture managed from the likes of BlackRock and other top-down Wall Street institutions doesn't just fail to support that, it actively displaces it. It inserts a privatization, it inserts a compliance layer between a community and its own resources. So it says, before you can govern your water, your land, your fisheries, translate it into our accounting units, run it through our certification bodies, accept our valuation. That's not a technical problem. That's a political one. And the 2030 SDG deadline is just 4 years away. And so the paper on my Substack is a shortcut, kind of working roadmap through thousands of pages of international programs that we're going to wake up living inside of. So subscribe and follow me here. Decolonize Accounting, onibaba.substack. Please share, please subscribe. Thank you for listening. Glad you made it this far.